Alright. I'm just gonna make a sit down video with a stationary camera about Lenin while I smoke for a second. Because he's based. What else can I fucking say? First man to realize a socialist fucking uprising. Based. Absolutely based. And a man that's very slandered. But also a man that, there were disagreements within the party, which is kind of fun. I like learning about that shit more than I like, learning about shit that I agree with, right? So he did something called the NEP, and I think it's called the New Economic Policy. So it was more so of I would say, a conciliatory move to have retain the bourgeois within the USSR and to be able to have people own farms, people own, I don't know what else people were able to own. I think it was mainly farms and mainly stuff like that. But that was a conciliatory move because there was, from what I've read, unrest. I don't really know the specifics about it, but unrest about people giving up their land, giving up their farms, and I could understand that, I guess, but it's very interesting, very interesting. So then later Stalin decided to kind of go back on that. But you see, these are the things. Material conditions is what you need to really pay attention to in these kind of circumstances. So I'm still reading, right? I don't know everything, but it's a huge part of it is that he was still trying to gather resources, build up the USSR. That was right after there were famines during the Tsarist rule as well. It was a collapsing empire. That's why there was a revolution able to start. So these things kind of precipitate, so you don't just with these kind of developments, you don't just go from 0 to 1. You kind of have to, obviously, like how I just earlier said, take material conditions into account. And that's what's really the most interesting and the most strong thing about these leaders, is that they actually had to take stances, and inter-party disagreements. It's kind of stressful, especially if, at the end of the day, you're risking being called a counter-revolutionary, all that kind of stuff. It's not the easiest thing to necessarily do. And so during Lenin's entire later life, he was just trying to make sure everything went right. I bet that was pretty fucking stressful. And again, nowadays we might not need as central of a plan as that. We might, there's just many different ways to go about things, especially nowadays since we have electronics, right? But back in that day, they had Soviets, they had paper and fucking pen. All right, so again, material conditions, bro. So what the fuck are you actually gonna really do in that situation is what I would say. But who knows? You can't read time. But again, we have the ability to do these calculations, to figure out data points, to figure out if things are feasible now, much more than ever, much more than they did back then. But what I'm seeing is that I don't really see as much of a usage. I see actually a lot less of a usage of these means, and it's really not good. I mean, I get being against AI, I get being against even just over commodification, I guess, over complicating and making things too technological. But these things are here for us, it's cold hard science, cold hard facts, right? So they don't really change unless somebody decides to change it. But that's the thing, I don't really see, I see a lot of good arguments being made. I see a lot of stuff. I don't see a lot of dialectical materialism. I don't, you know. But back to Lenin and everything, though. Seriously, I I don't think nowadays we need to have that, you know, that much of a transition period. I mean, in this country, in America, I would say. But again, who knows? Who knows if like public sentiment would just go along easier? Who knows? But yeah, Lenin's based, and the fact that he disagreed with certain people is interesting. I think people should look more into that and look less into the hero worship. Is, I guess, my little conclusion, if there was a conclusion. So, thanks for watching.